Hello and welcome everyone to Conversations with Tona Brown. I am here with Nathan James. Nathan, thank you for joining me in a conversation about all the craziness that's going on in America right now. How are you doing today?
Doing okay, enjoying the nice weather. Late May is always a wonderful time of year, and it's a privilege and a pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. I mean, we just have to get right into it. There's just so much that we don't even have enough time on a podcast to actually get through everything. But we are now seeing that the Trump administration is now saying that trans people are terrorists. And so you and I both were furious about it. We want to not only talk about it, but we're also going to get joined by Troy Kennedy and some other people to talk about this and to write up some kind of article or something about it. But first, why don't you give everyone some historical perspective as to why this is so important and so crazy?
Okay, the Friday before last, the White House released a document called the Counterterrorism Strategy of the United States, which ostensibly lays out how the Trump administration, the Department of Homeland Security, and the various associated agencies will deal with the threat of terrorism against our country. In this document, right on page 2, it begins with a foreword written by President Trump, in which he designates people with, as he describes, quote, radical pro-transgender ideology, unquote, meaning individuals and groups who support LGBTQ people in general and trans people in particular, and he ended that letter, which he signed his name to, with the words, "We will find you and kill you." So he is making manifestly clear exactly what the government's attitude is going to be towards LGBTQ plus people, trans men and women, and pretty much any other group he has designated as one he doesn't like.
Can you mention some other people that he designated?
He mentioned Antifa, which is not an organized group at all, but wants to include because he needs another boogeyman.
Right.
He mentioned radical religious extremists, and he mentioned political, for lack of a better phrase, he said people who have political views that are contrary to true American values.
Right. Of course, he didn't mention white Christian nationalists, right?
No, he did not. He did not mention white Christian nationalists or organized hate groups like the Proud Boys or the Oath Keepers, and he certainly didn't mention any of his close associates who have begun serious legislative efforts to bring back Jim Crow and all the rest of it.
Right, right. And you know, and this is the reason why we're going to have this conversation because again, the statistics are telling us something totally different than what he is trying to report as being the problem. And we all know that you just don't even if you just close your eyes and if you can think of 10 trans people or even one trans person that has committed any kind of like mass shootings or what have you. We do know of a couple, right? But the majority of the people who are committing these crimes are not transgender people. So why is it that you're listing us as domestic terrorists? What proof does he have or his administration has that trans people are committing these crimes?
Well, I can lay my hands on some figures that come right from the Trump administration, right from the FBI. Yes, I know this is Kash Patel's FBI, but one of the things the FBI does every year is they keep statistics on what are called the 7 index crimes, which are murder, rape, robbery, and so on. And terrorism is included in that matrix. Since 2018, there have been a grand total of, get ready for it, 4 trans individuals that were involved in mass shootings in the United States. That's over the last 8 years.
Mm,
Okay? By contrast, white cisgender males have been involved in 4,192 mass shootings in that same 8 year period. So it's very clear that what Trump is trying to do here is he's trying to give his followers a convenient punching bag, a convenient target to bully and go after. He's very good with dog whistles, so when he says we will find you and kill you, he's talking to the people in the MAGA cult who follow him.
Keep going.
So
Okay. Yeah, for some reason with it in this mode, I can't see his face. Like that's why I keep moving it because his face is on here, but my face is like bigger. There it is. Okay, I just made it smaller or something. But now I can see him. Okay, 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 okay. What were you saying, Nathan?
okay, I was saying that because in order to stay current, to stay in the news cycle and keep his followers galvanized, Trump needs an other group. He needs a group that he can use as a wedge issue. He needs a group that he can use for rage farming. He definitely needs a group to have his nightly engagement parlor when he's up at 3 in the morning on Truth Social trying to demonize us. So
Right.
all of these things factor into his behavior and subsequently the behavior of the administration itself.
Yes, and we did just to mention these dog whistles and how it does affect the lives of transgender people, LGBTQ people, any marginalized group. We had a young lady that was murdered recently. Can you tell us about what your reporting has found?
Yeah, this is a very, very sad, tragic story. A 19-year-old freshman at the University of Washington in Seattle. Her name was Juniper Blessing. She was a gifted music student and she was doing her laundry in what was supposed to be a secured area of the campus, meaning like a dorm or a student center where she should have enjoyed safety while she was doing her weekly necessities. But this young man, a 31-year-old man named Christopher Leahy, set upon her in the laundry room. He was captured on video entering the laundry room and then leaving the laundry room with blood on his clothing and on the walls. He stabbed this defenseless trans woman 40 times.
Mm,
She was found on the floor of the laundry room with defensive wounds on her hands. So my overwhelming impression here is that this was not a random act of violence. I have the impression that he knew his victim, and the degree of force that was used on this poor woman speaks to what might have been going through his head vis-a-vis transgender people and this woman in particular.
yes, I have to agree. I'm waiting to get more information to see if this was one of her intimate partners or someone that she actually knew because I haven't been able to read anything to find out if they've done more investigating. Have you?
Well, the suspect, Mr. Leahy, has been held on $10 million bail, so he's not going anywhere soon. He has been charged with first-degree murder, which is the most severe murder charge in the state of Washington, and they are looking at his past movements, and I'm sure they're going through both the victim and the perpetrator's devices to see if there was any connection between them. In the meantime, there have been GoFundMe collections taken up for both this poor young woman and for the alleged killer. And one thing that I noticed, which really says something about our society, is that so far, Mr. Leahy has received through GoFundMe 150.
Wow.
Yeah, it's astonishing to me, but it is what it is.
That's right. Believable. Believable. But I mean, in this time, we can't even be surprised, unfortunately, because of all the negative rhetoric that you and I talk about all the time that is being put out here. And so who knows why these people are donating, thinking that he is a victim in some kind of way, even though he has stabbed someone, whether she was trans or not, 41 times. But that's the person that you all want to sponsor. It's crazy.
Absolutely. This rhetoric validates people's bigotry. And when it comes from an authority figure like Trump or someone who is very well known like Charlie Kirk, it serves as further reinforcement that their beliefs are socially correct.
Right.
And in terms of the kind of rhetoric we're seeing all over social media, what we're seeing on the news, what we hear from official bodies like the White House, people can take that kind of ideology to heart. and they can translate that into violence.
And that's what we're starting to see more and more, and it's just dreadful and unfortunate. Um, you know, what else has your research been showing you or that you find interesting?
Well, one thing is definitely been clear. Besides the wave of legislation that has been getting passed and enacted against the LGBTQ community, incidents of violence against trans people are way up, as you might expect, given that the internet, that the online world we inhabit is so shot through these days with this kind of violent rhetoric. All of it comes together. I saw a projection that was released by the Trevor Project not too long ago that shows that 15 out of our 50 states in the Union are now hostile places for the LGBTQ community. And this morning, the LGBTQ Affairs Office in the city of Seattle, where Juniper was mercilessly murdered, has recommended to the mayor that a state of civil emergency be declared because so many trans people were fleeing to Washington and to Seattle to seek refuge.
Mm, wow, that is really something. Wow.
Yeah, we have taken huge steps backwards in where we are as a society and as a nation.
Exactly, and I think this is the proper time to talk about all of the protections that we all thought were always gonna be here, but I think that it's imperative for people to now are now starting to see that nothing was just given to any of us, any of the marginalized groups. It wasn't just given, it was all fought for, people died for them, and now we're starting to see that, hey, if we don't get out here and resist and fight, they can be stripped away just like that. And that's what we're seeing with this administration. And it's all across America, all demographics of people besides the mega wealthy. And it's happening all at once. It's like a tsunami effect. And it's just blowing people's minds.
Well, I will say this about that. I know we've heard over and over again, and this was repeated just yesterday. They recreated the march across the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Alabama yesterday as a form of protest because the Voting Rights Act was gutted by the Supreme Court. But one of the things that they said in the march was we only have the rights we can defend. And that is definitely true for all of us. And the way we defend the rights that are slowly being taken away from us one by one is to vote, 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 vote. I can't stress that enough because turnout is going to make all the difference this November.
Absolutely.
In Hungary, look at what happened overseas in Hungary just recently. Viktor Orban, who was the 16-year totalitarian would-be dictator of that country, who, by the way, was one of the most anti-LGBTQ leaders Europe has had in several generations. 80% of the eligible voters showed up at the polls, and Orban was gone. And now the LGBTQ community can breathe a sigh of relief because now things are returning to safety and to a state of normality. We have to do that here. We have to register. We have to make sure we are eligible. We have to check our registry online to make sure we're still registered because they have been wiping us off the voter rolls left and right, not to mention gerrymandering us out of our own districts.
Right. Right.
So, if we want to preserve what we have worked so hard to build over the past 6 decades, this is how to do it.
Absolutely. And I will say that I was one of the voters here in Virginia who went out, stood in the lines, although they weren't too terrible when I went, but stood in lines and voted so that we could redistrict. And then our Supreme Court dismantled the whole thing. And it's just very, very frustrating to all of us that live here because the people spoke. We were given a question. We spoke. We said that this is something that we want to temporarily have in place just to have it be shut down.
Yeah, exactly. What the Supreme Court, what Trump's justices, joined by John Roberts, did on the Supreme Court, John Roberts, Clarence Thomas, Samuel Alito, and the rest of them, they were very deliberate in what they did. They took direct aim at Article 2 of the Voting Rights Act. And because they declared that that was unconstitutional, it disembowels the entire legislation. And this is something that the Heritage Foundation, the authors of Project 2025, have been trying to do since Trump was in office the first time.
That's right. Absolutely. And now the whole playbook is going out. And when we tried to warn people that all of this was part of the playbook, nobody wanted to listen to us, other activists, journalists. Everyone was telling everyone that this is the playbook. Just because you think it's about one group of people doesn't mean that they're not going to go down the list and that you aren't next. Any marginalized individual was on the chopping block in some kind of way. These conservatives and these Republicans want to take everything back to the 1920s and 40s, and we're not going to have it. And the thing is, everything that he's doing is so unpopular. His approval ratings are dismal all around the country. This is not what we want. But they're going to try to force this because they knew this was the last time they would be able to get into power. The other thing I want to say is that we also need to remember. We need to remember the politicians. We need to remember the organizations and the companies that went that way so that we never get fooled again. Because one of my biggest arguments with the LGBTQ movement has been, why are you all trusting these major companies in the first place? Just because they're giving you money doesn't mean that they're really down. And look what happened. So many of them, the minute things got hot, they were gone. You can't even get them to sponsor an event. Definitely can't. Even at Target, we used to have a whole section. So I'm just saying, like, it's time for us to see things for what it is and stop being in a delusional world where we think that things are so much more progressive than they actually are. They're not. And one of the reasons why I know I'm not as popular as other people is because I'm not delusional about it. And I've never pretended that things were perfect. Even when we had the legislation, my sisters were still out here getting murdered every month. So clearly, just because you have even just a piece of paper that says that this is not what you're supposed to do, although I'm not saying we shouldn't have them, just in case someone tried to quote me, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that things have never been perfect for us. It's not going to be perfect for us. And that is why we have to do the work to get these protections, to get out here, like Nathan said, and vote, and to educate ourselves on the issues that affect not only us, but everyone else. I mean, look at how many white women didn't even think that they were marginalized. And now look what is happening with body autonomy and abortion issues and all of these type of things. Everyone has to wake up. Wake the F up. We have to get out here. We have to stop telling people that your vote doesn't matter. If your vote didn't matter, then why would they be going through all of this drama to redistrict and to tell you not to vote and make it harder for you to vote and intimidate you at the polls? So that doesn't make logical sense. So let us not allow people to say things like that when they're around you, and get our asses out here to vote.
Absolutely. And if the Republicans, if the MAGA party could win elections in the normal way, legitimately, they would not have to, as you said, they would not have to do things like gerrymandering or do judicial shenanigans, for lack of a better word. Because, the Supreme Court has been handing down decisions that are not found in the Constitution. Presidential immunity is one of them. But the remedy again for that is we have to vote. We not only have to vote, we need to vote in an organized way. That means get together with your friends and family, organize a carpool if you have to, get extra transit tickets if you're in a big city, but get down to those polls if you have a mail in ballot, comes through the mail. Make sure that ballot gets back into the mail well before election day because they've been messing with the post office too. The post office processes mail now is different. So you want to have that mail in ballot get to the election office by election day. That means when you receive it, fill it out, sign it, seal it, send it. All these things matter. If we want to have that blue tsunami, if we want to regain Congress and undo a lot of the damage that has been done in the past year and a half, this is the way.
Absolutely. And it's just a must. On a positive, we are seeing resistance all around the country. We are seeing resistance to the detention, concentration as quote unquote concentration camps sort of things that this administration has been trying to put up all around the country. They tried to do it here in Maryland. They said, hell no. They tried to do it here in Virginia. They said, no, we do not want these things here. They've tried to do it all around the country and they've been really, really struggling, except for in Florida, to be able to get these things up. We're also seeing so many people get out here who might not have wanted to vote for a Democrat per se, but they're finally realizing what we've been trying to tell you. No one is saying that any party is perfect, but you have to go with the people that are going to see you and your issues. We're finally starting to see more people say, well, you know what? It's not happening over with the Republicans, so I'm going to get my ass out here and make a difference and volunteer and get people registered and all that. So every state you turn around, blue has been winning. Blue has been winning. Blue has been winning, which should have been what happened when you had someone who was a convicted sex offender and all those type of things running against a qualified professional black woman. That's what everyone should have been doing from the get. But I digress. But it is happening now, and I'm so glad to see it. What are some positive things that you think are happening?
Well, one big, huge positive that I see now is I see the younger generation getting mobilized, both within the LGBTQ community, among our allies, and among society at large. I'm beginning to see younger people, Generation Z, Generation Alpha, the millennials. I'm beginning to see them be more situationally aware politically. And it's a lot of things I think that came together that made people have that epiphany, that wake up moment. The cost of living now, the reality that their future will not be the same as it was for someone, for example, in my generation. The fact that we are going back to the conditions we faced at the time that I was born. I was born during Jim Crow, and the states of the old Confederacy are racing as fast as they can to return to that. And I think the young people in our country are saying, no, this is not what we signed up for. I think it's one positive. I think another positive that we're seeing across the board, really, is that people in general are paying more attention to what is going on in the world. Okay. And an educated populace is our best defense. I think that goes almost without saying. And we're even seeing some pushback in academia because there are incidences where not only has the Trump administration threatened universities and colleges with their funding unless they don't acquiesce to the administration's wishes. We're seeing the faculty push back on academic freedom grounds. At Texas Tech, they instituted a policy that students and faculty can no longer write, teach, or speak about LGBTQ topics. Well, that didn't sit well with the faculty at all.
Mm,
And I think that's important. So I'm glad
absolutely.
that there is some pushback finally.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it was gonna happen. I think that some people were scared, so there was like a delayed reaction. But in the end, I think that it's gonna continue to happen. You can't put people in a cage and let them out and then think that you can just throw them back in and there not be any backlash. There's going to be just as much backlash as it was when Barack Obama got into office and we all thought everything was great. And then I kept trying to tell all my friends, I'm like, the equal amount of backlash is going to happen. You can't have all this progression. And then you have these people who never wanted the progression in the first place thinking that they're going to be just okay with everything. No, they're not. And that's what we're seeing. And that's why the Heritage Foundation did all this research to figure out what they can do um, while Barack Obama was in office.
Agreed. And the thing is, people knew long beforehand exactly what they were getting with Trump and with the MAGA Party. The Heritage Foundation published their little manifesto in 2024, before the
Mm,
2024 election. So people had plenty of time to read it and understand what was coming down the pike. People didn't believe it was really going to happen.
right, Well, I want to also thank you for giving people actionable steps to know what they can do to make a difference because sometimes people aren't paying attention. I get it. But now that you see what is happening, you guys, it's time to get to action. We don't have a choice. You better fight like it's the last thing that you have because you don't know who is next, what is next. You might think that it's just immigrants, and then you might think it's just Black people. You might think it's just women, whatever it is. You're seeing that it's everybody. I mean, darn, you can't even go to the gas pump these days without grimacing over the bill because it's like five, some places almost $6 a gallon. I mean, it is like ridiculous how expensive everything is, and this is the same administration that lied to you to your face and told you that they were going to reduce costs for everything. Everything has gone up. It is crazy.
Yeah, it really is. Another point that you make, which I think is very relevant, is that people don't think it's going to affect them. What happens to us in the LGBTQ community today will happen to everyone else tomorrow. Okay? I hope nobody is under the misapprehension that the people in Washington, Trump, Stephen Miller, and all those goons in the cabinet are going to stop with us in the LGBTQ community. When they are finished with us, they will move on to the next group. Okay.
Yes.
It's going to happen. Look at what's coming out of the Supreme Court in the next 4 weeks. The birthright citizenship decision, which
Mm,
is going to be something else. I don't have very much confidence that they are going to rule in accordance with the Constitution, but we really need to buckle up and be braced for that. And then we need to say, okay, we need to mobilize even more. And again, I cannot overemphasize how important it is to vote. Not just get together and have carpools and the rest of it. Have a vote party. Get people excited about voting.
exactly. Well, the other thing I want us to do is also use our critical thinking skills from now on. Okay, which I'm not just saying that to people of color because we tried our best to do our part this last election, so kudos to us. But what I will say is that why are some of these things being targeted? What's the bigger picture? You and I have had our own discussions about it and our own theories. But one of the things I want to tell people is just why is it that you think that a whole government would be so offended by transgender people in general or a whole party? It doesn't really make sense because none of the statistics from the bathroom bills that come out, all of this fear mongering, there's no data that backs it up that we're a problem. So there has to be something bigger going on. Now, one of the things we saw even with Miss Noam's husband, wasn't it Christy Noam's husband? One
Yeah.
of the things that we saw with him is where I'm going with this, because you all know that I talk a lot about gender and sexuality with my fans and my Patreon and everything. And it's no surprise to women like myself that she would have a husband who is struggling with his own issues and is sitting there supporting someone like that because we see this all the time. Every time you get a whole bunch of Republican men together, Grinder gets shut down. You keep finding them in the bathrooms doing things. You keep seeing them like Christy Noam's husband. You see that he's playing off being a trans person, over exaggerated woman. Like, I mean, just all kinds of crazy that you're seeing on their side. And I think it's because of sexual repression. When you're not allowed or feel like you can be who you are or have been discriminated against in some kind of way, but you are not expressing who you really are, not just with sex, right? Because this person, he was wearing all kinds of big boobs and stuff. There's a lot going on, right? But whatever it is, when you're not allowing yourself or feeling that you can express yourself to be who you really are, it is going to be a problem. And one of the things that they don't like about us, especially in the trans community, is that we represent that sort of a freedom that they cannot have or feel that they can't have. And so they attack us. It doesn't make sense as us to be a problem. We don't have any power. We don't even have power in numbers. There's not enough of us in this country for us to be really a problem. Statistics don't show that we're the most violent group of people. You know what I mean? Where are you getting this from? You guys have to think bigger. Clearly, they have issues with themselves and they're projecting that on everyone else. Why are they the ones that keep getting caught in these sex stings and everything against children and against, women, all of this sexual assault and all these cases. These are things that we can actually go into Google and look up. The stuff that they're fear mongering everyone about with my community, you can't even find what they're talking about. And if we have been going into the restrooms with cisgender women for generations, and you have never had this overwhelming problem where transgender people have been caught in the bathroom doing anything but using the restroom, how is it that we have a whole part of the government that is able to put money and funding behind getting these bills passed? It is just really bizarre to me. What do you think, Nathan?
I think our priorities are all messed up. You're absolutely right. I don't understand why we're prioritizing anti-LGBTQ legislation, anti-trans legislation, but I think you hit on something important. Now, roll the clock back a couple of years. Kristi Noem is governor of South Dakota. She supported a trans bathroom bill while she was governor of the state. And her husband, in the meantime, in the other room, unbeknownst to her, okay, is pining to be the exact type of person she is legislating against. So imagine the terror he must feel that every night he goes to bed next to a woman who is absolutely adamantly opposed to the kind of person he wants to become. Okay?
But see, but let's go even further. And I'm not trying to be messy, but I'm just gonna keep it 100. They love beards and they expect everyone else to live that way. What they can't stand about my fierce LGBTQ brothers and sisters is that we keep it 100 real. Whereas they are living as if they are something that they are not, right? So, but they feel that everyone should do the same. And I think that's one of the reasons why, just one of many reasons, why these people are so against our community. Specifically, I'm talking about the trans stuff because that's even more over the top. It just doesn't make any sense. But unless you have some kind of issues with yourself, y'all don't even know, most people don't even know a transgender person.
That's true.
So, well, what is your fear about transgender people? And then as far as any statistics about us being child molesters and stuff, there's nothing out there about that about us, but there's plenty of that about them. So it just doesn't make any sense. You're projecting. This is who you are. You're scared of people touching kids because a lot of your men, husbands, grandfathers, uncles, they're out here doing some of everything else. But that doesn't mean that my community is doing it. In fact, y'all the ones that are going to jail for it. So it just doesn't make any sense. And that's what I need people to start thinking more critically. Instead of just hearing something and going with that information, do some research yourself. Find out, even if you don't understand something or agree with someone's quote unquote lifestyle, how are these people living? If you didn't know anything about us, then we clearly have been living and doing things and being in the grocery store with you. We've been in bathrooms with you all this time and we've never been a problem. So why would you think ill of a community that you don't know anything about? So you gotta self-analyze even yourself as to why you fell for this rhetoric.
Because they're so invested in clutching their pearls that they cannot see past the inconsistencies in their own thinking. Mark Robinson, who was the lieutenant governor of North Carolina, is a very good example of that because When he was in office, he was one of the most anti-trans politicians in the state, and he used to thunder from his bully pulpit about how trans children, men and women, were threats to children, that they shouldn't be in the bathroom, all the same things. And what do we find out? That he is sitting in a dark room, literally drooling over the trans porn that's going across his screen. I mean, the things he was saying
Notorious.
in these chat rooms, I knew. I said to myself, there is no way he's going to recover politically from that once it became visible.
Right, right. I mean, and they had the screenshots and all. Like, it's just like, okay, here we go yet again. You opened your mouth about something that you were doing, and now you've gotten busted. And we just keep seeing it over and over and over with these politicians. So
And
if it's
and
that way with politicians, then you
and
know it's that.
and ran on an anti-trans platform on top of all that.
I can't. I literally can't. I can't. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. You really can't. And now there's podcasts that are dedicated to outing these men. And I think it's wonderful. Men and women, but mostly men. You know what I'm saying? I think it's wonderful because it's time for us to expose them. If you're going to come for our rights, our body autonomy, whether we should be married, whether we should be able to change our names and all that, then it's time for us to let the world know who are the people that are actually perpetrating the crimes. And so I even on my platform, I make sure that when I see something that comes across where these supposedly white Christian nationalists and all these folks, these Republicans are saying that they're anti-LGBTQ and they keep getting caught out there, I make sure I share it because people need to see that.
I couldn't agree more. Sunlight is the best disinfectant. So
Well, anyway, Nathan, I'm not going to keep you all day. I know you have a very busy schedule. Thank you so much. Please come back often to keep us updated on all this stuff that's happening around the country and around the world. You guys, we're not in a vacuum. America is not the only place that's having these issues. It's all across the world. I honestly think that if we could dismantle this patriarchy and start getting people to learn to love each other and to stop competing with each other and to just allow people to be themselves, we would have a lot greater world country in general. It's just time. And I think that this is that point in history where everything is just riled up so much that something's going to have to blow up and be rebuilt because it's just getting crazy.
it was my privilege to be here. And of course, I'll be happy to come back whenever you like.
All right. Thank you so much, Nathan, for being on Conversations with Tona Brown. This is Tona Brown and Nathan James. We wanted to give you all an urgent update on what is going on around the country. And I'm so pleased to do it with my buddy, Nathan James. Thank you so much again, Nathan.
You're very welcome. Thank you.